Hey guys, Traveling Taylor back here with you, and I am prepping to get back on the road, start traveling again after my break over the holidays, which was really nice. But this week I thought we would talk about cell phone plans while you're traveling internationally. When I left for New Zealand in 2018, I knew I was going to be overseas for a while, and I did quite a bit of cell phone research before I left. I had also studied abroad when I was in college, and I was a study abroad advisor before I started traveling. So cell phone plans were something that I talked about pretty often, and people were always asking me about. And so I thought it would be really good to kind of just go over some of your different options that you may or may not know about and kind of discuss the pros and cons to all of them. So I will say that now in 2019, 2020, what I use for my cell phone plan is actually Google Fi. A lot of people have never heard of this, and it is sort of the new carrier on the block, although they did release Project Fi in 2015. So it has been around for a little while, but it is Google's cell phone carrier, and it's kind of, in my opinion, it's really disrupted the cell phone plan options, especially here in the United States. So what is Google Fi and why do I use it? So it is basically it's just a SIM card, and the SIM card is free, and you can actually pick it up at Best Buy or you can order it from the Google Fi website. They will mail it to you, and you just put it into the SIM spot on your phone just like normal, and it just connects like that. Now their website does say that it needs to be activated within the United States. So if you can do that before you start traveling, I highly recommend it. Although I was actually able to activate mine in New Zealand, and I do have a friend who's able to activate his in Mexico. So I don't recommend it. I actually tried to validate or activate it in Australia, and it did not work there. It wasn't until I got back to New Zealand that it started working. So just keep that in mind before you start traveling. It's good to kind of look these things up before you go. The reason I love Google Fi is that I'm able to keep my US phone number anywhere around the world, wherever I am. This became a huge thing for me when I was overseas and I needed to, say, log into my bank, which is an American bank, and everything always needed that two-factor authentication, needed to send me a text. Sometimes an email wasn't an option, and I was really struggling to log into some things. I was in New Zealand for a while, but I was going to start going to country, and I didn't really want to keep changing my phone number every 4 to 6 weeks as I moved to a new country. So being able to stick with my US phone number was really kind of a big draw for me. The other thing that I really love about it is you pay $20 a month for sort of like just a base rate. That's sort of like your plan, I guess. And then you pay $10 a month for every gig that you use of data. And then after 6 gigs, your data is free. So the maximum you're going to be paying is $80 a month. If you know anything about US cell phone plans, that's pretty good. Most of them are at least $100, if not more than that. And I fly from Vietnam to Thailand. Literally, the minute I turn my phone back off airplane mode, it finds the local connection and I'm ready to go right out of the gate. So there's no messing with SIM cards. There's no changing this or that. I just have to turn my phone back on. It takes a little bit to connect to the local network, but it will pick one. And then while I'm here in the US, because I'm on an iPhone, it uses the T-Mobile towers. But if you are actually on a Google device, the device is actually made for Google Fi, then you actually get more benefits. It rotates between T-Mobile, Sprint, and US Cellular, and it automatically connects to Wi-Fi hotspots as well. So if you have an Android device and you are maybe in the market for a new phone and you wouldn't mind going to a Google phone, maybe you already have a Google phone, definitely it works a lot better with that. But if you are an Apple user like I am and you have an iPhone, as long as your phone is unlocked, you are able to use the Google Fi SIM. So there are so many more benefits to it. They have this flexible plan that I mentioned, which is what I'm on. They also released unlimited and group plans just a few months ago. And so if you like the idea of having unlimited data wherever you are, the more people you have on that plan, actually the better that it is. So that is what I have decided to go with. I've been on it since February, so I've traveled to I think 10 different countries on it, as including the United States and multiple states here, and it is my absolute favorite, and I'm a huge fan of Google Fi. So check that out. I do think that you have to have a US address to get the SIM card. So I don't know how well it works for internationals, but that's just something to keep in mind. And they may, release it other places in the future. So the other options that you can use while you're traveling are kind of the tried and true things that you can do. I mentioned that I studied abroad in college, and at that time, the normal thing to do was just to buy a small brick phone while you were there. So I think not when I studied abroad, I think when I interned in London, I did finally have a smartphone because, they were still pretty new not that long ago. I kept my smartphone with my US SIM card pretty much just on Wi-Fi all the time. I turned off the data. I pretty much had on airplane mode unless I was in a Wi-Fi area. And I was able to use it for maps, and the little blue dot would follow me around the city, so it was fine. But when I actually was there, I had just a little Nokia old school brick phone, T9 texting, and that gave me a UK phone number, which was great. I needed that for work since I was interning there. And then I just kind of paid as I went. I just topped up, as they say, whenever I needed more credit on my phone. And I usually would spend about, maybe 40 pounds a month, maybe a little bit less than that. I don't exactly remember, but that is one option that you can do if you don't mind carrying two phones, which I will say technology has advanced a little bit, and some phones do have dual SIM cards, so that is another way to kind of switch between phone numbers without having two phones. The other option, and which is what I started doing, and a lot of travelers or nomads still do today, is you just get a local SIM card once you arrive. So typically in the airports and in the international terminals, there will be people selling you phone plans while you're there. And again, these are kind of top up as you go, but instead of having to change your phone or get a new phone, you're actually able to keep your cell phone that you have and just change out the SIM card. They typically do it even right there for you at the table. So when I was in New Zealand, for example, I used Vodafone, as that was the SIM card that I got. But as I mentioned sort of at the top, the struggle I was running into was having that international phone number and not having access to my US phone number, which I just suspended overseas because I just didn't know what I was going to do with it. I didn't want to lose my US phone number. But so the downside to getting a local SIM and not having your typical number is it may be a little more challenging with that two-factor authentication to log into websites or certain apps. But the benefits of having a local phone number as opposed to an international number is that people are more inclined that you meet to actually use that phone number. It is easier to communicate, and it kind of helps you assimilate into the country and the culture a little bit more, especially if you're going to be in a place for an extended period of time, like I was when I was in New Zealand for a year. Having said that, a lot of people that I met when I was traveling and ran into used WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or some other system of communicating. So I'm not sure that having a local phone number is as important today as it used to be, because there are other ways to communicate for free. But it's just something to keep in mind that you may or may not want to change your phone number while you're traveling. And again, there are phones with dual SIMs, so if you are prepared to purchase one of those phones, that is another option. And then the last option I want to talk about is just for Americans, but T-Mobile is sort of kind of known as being an international friendly cell phone carrier, especially opposed to some of the other large carriers here in the US. In general, I deter people from adding on international plans to their current cell phone plan. I find that they're really expensive, they don't offer really a lot of benefits, and they are typically a lot of hidden fees. That's the other great thing about Google Fi is the whole point of it is there's no hidden fees. It's just straight up, this is how much you use, this is how much you pay for. If you use less than 6 gigs a month, like say you only use 3 gigs or 1 or 2, that's all you pay for, versus most US phone plans that just charge you sort of a standard regardless of how much you use. Anyways, the thing about T-Mobile is it does have a really great reputation for being able to be used overseas and being used easily. I actually just looked up on their website. They also have the ability to just connect with a tower wherever you are, which is really great. It's really convenient. The reason I did not go with T-Mobile before I left the US is because they have a clause in their terms and conditions that says if you use your phone extensively outside the United States, they can cut off your service at any time. For me, I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. I ended up being gone for 17 months. And so there's a really real chance that they could have cut off my service. I know other people whose service has been cut off who had T-Mobile. So just keep that in mind. So if you only plan on traveling 3 or 4 months out of the year, you're totally fine. But if you plan to be outside the US for an extended period of time, T-Mobile may not actually be the best carrier to use because they do have that clause in their terms and conditions. So that is why I did not go with T-Mobile. That is why I got a phone when I got to New Zealand. And then once Google Fi started working in iPhones, which was about 8 months after I left, it is still technically in beta for iPhones, but once it started working, I immediately jumped on board and I've been really happy with it since. So yeah, traveling overseas, those are some of your cell phone options. And I mentioned a few ways that you can also communicate outside texting, which I find is really just kind of big in the US and not so big in other places, through WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. And there are so many that you just got to find what the locals use and what works for the people in your life. So that is it. That is your travel tip for this week. That is about cell phone plans internationally. I'm Traveling Taylor and I am here coming out with a video every Tuesday. So I will see you next week.